Hey everyone,
Welcome to Podcast for Your Life, where we share thoughts from our life.
for yours. I'm Jam.
And I am Jason. And I guess we're back again.
There
was like a time before where we were like back, and
Yeah,
there was Jam was out of the country.
I was
So
out of the country, and to commemorate my return, we're going to talk about something unrelated to my trip.
nothing to do with international travel.
Right. The topic is nicknames.
Yes. Did the people who were on the trip, did they give you a nickname?
They did try to. They tried to basically piggyback on my already current nickname,
Which is
Jam.
what? His name isn't really Jam.
Yeah, people on the trip. One of our coworkers tried to add to the nickname, which I don't think is going to work, to start calling me Jamberry, because it adds like 2 more syllables, and it's I don't get it. I'm told it's like these stick-on fingernails thing.
Jamboree, it's a company.
Yeah,
I have a friend who does them.
Yeah, I would not know. Anyway, so it's not gonna stick.
Well, we will have to see. I used it once, but I'm trying to save it in case it comes up, in case there arises a need to share it. But that leads to an interesting question. So you said that nicknames have to be like a certain length. So what defines a nickname? Because like I think there are nicknames like the Bruiser, or something like that. But yours, you have 3 first names, or 1 first name and 2 middle names. Either one. Either way, you have 3 first names.
Yeah.
And then somebody condensed them and just did the initials Jam, Jam.
Yeah.
So that's shortening it. It's making it less work.
Yeah.
But
Well, I
some
condensed them.
You condensed them. Oh, okay.
I was the initial condenser. But yes, you're right. It's common because shortening someone's name is bound to happen at some point. Like you get really close to somebody, either it's a family member or a close friend. If you have a long name, surely the need arises at some point to want to say the name in a shorter way.
That's interesting. Like
Right?
Benjamin, they want to be Ben, or somebody wants to call you Ben.
Yeah.
I get called Jay a lot instead of Jason.
But you're the first Jason I've ever met that's ever been called that.
Been called Jay?
Uh-huh.
As a nickname, really? It's very common among us Jasons.
Well, not that half of Jasons I've talked to.
Well-
I've met 50% of Jasons.
The only Jay I know whose actual name is Jay, he's not actually a Jay, he's a John.
Yeah.
Breaks my heart.
Shout out to you, John.
Hey, John. So, nicknames. Tell us a little bit about how they started.
Let me tell it to you from a folk story. We know how reliable those are. So, this is a story that my dad told me as a kid. So, there was this guy who had a really long name. His name was Nicky Nicky Nimbo, Osa Rimbo, Umamuchi, Gamagaguchi. And the story goes that he fell in a well or some sort of trouble. He got in some kind of trouble like
That's
that, where
terrible.
he's trapped in a pit or a well or something. And he was able to call up to somebody, a small boy, and basically the boy tries to tell this other guy, who tries to tell this other guy, and tries to get the whole town to come help.
It's like telephone.
But every time they have to say who's stuck in the well,
Right.
he's like, oh, it's Nicky Nicky Nimbo, Sarimbo, Umamuchi, Gamagaguchi. And it's like this long name, and then they do save him, but because of the whole situation, they're like, okay, guys, in this moment, we've realized having such long names, not a good idea. Why don't we shorten this guy's name to Nick? And then he is the first Nick name. That's the story. So
he was not only the first nickname, but also the first person named Nick.
well, I guess so.
Guess we'll never know.
That's one folk story that kind of answers 2 questions. Who was the first guy named Nick?
Yeah.
And who had the first nickname?
Right. How interesting. I didn't know that the A in Jam stands for Aesop.
Aesop. All right.
Aesop's Fables, brought to you by Joshua Aesop Miguel Robinson. Oh, man. Well, thank you for sharing the history of names.
Of course.
Do you have any embarrassing nicknames?
So, one of my earliest nicknames in middle school, one of my friends coined the nickname JPAC for me.
Okay, why?
I don't know. And it was JPAK was how you spelled it, like
Okay.
JPAC. And it was kind of like I guess, sort of like in the category of like rap names or something.
Yeah, it sounds like a rap name.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so I was called that for probably like 3 years at school.
Cool.
Not everybody, but like
Just by him?
Definitely a group of people. No, not just him. I'm not really sure if it made me seem whiter or if it made me cooler. One of those things had to happen. It's like this really white kid named with the nickname J-Pack. Either it brings to your attention how white he is, or it's like, oh, maybe he's cooler than I expected. So
maybe he just wanted to laugh every time he said that name. That's usually what I feel like some nicknames are. If nobody else is like calling you that, like Jay, like a lot of people have called me that. I feel like there's that one person who calls you that one nickname. It's generally for their own personal amusement. If it doesn't catch on, you know, like Jamberry, it's probably just gonna be for that person's personal amusement.
yeah, that's probably true.
So then it comes down to like when do you step in and say, "Hey, stop calling me that," or "Hey, I don't think that's funny," or like you just leave it, you know?
So what's the nickname you've had as a kid?
Well, I obviously said Jay. I've had JJ. That's like what my parents, or my mom, I guess. Yeah, both my parents. That's what they would call me growing up, and I guess still do occasionally. Not like, "Hey, JJ," but just anyway. I've been called J Bear.
Yep.
So, yeah, somebody along the way called me J Bear, and somehow all my teenage guy friends thought that was hilarious, so they started calling me J Bear. And then my wife started calling me J Bear when we were dating.
I thought she had coined it, so
No,
because I've heard her say that many times.
It was a friend from high school. And I don't even know why. It didn't make any sense. But she was just, one day was like, J Bear. I'm like, okay. Anyway.
Yeah, that's why I call you that too now.
The myth. No, you don't. If you do, you should stop.
So one of like my friends that I kind of grew up with, he was a little bit older and ended up being like the intern at our youth group at one point. But his name was Justin, and at some point, someone called him the nickname Keefy because his last name is Keith.
Okay.
But the nickname was Keef with the F, Keefy, and that is like probably the only nickname I've ever experienced, like of someone around me in my life that is really like stuck hardcore, but that I was also like around whenever it happened. And he was forever Keefy, and still is to anyone who knew him from that time. Like I think now he like when he lives somewhere else now, so now he goes by Justin most of the time. But like everyone in the Abilene area that knew him at that time, like he's Keefy, and it was like.
Wow.
Like even at school, like teachers and everything like that,
really
called him that because it was like it embodied him really well, and like he was also a really friendly dude and like very enjoyable to talk to. Didn't meet a stranger kind of guy, you know. And so I don't know, it just worked. He had the personality to match a nickname type of life. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Poor guy. Did he like Keefy?
Yes, he did.
Oh, well then less poor guy.
He didn't hate it. I mean, it's like there's nothing to hate about it. So
yeah, he embraced it.
Yes.
That's cool. Well, speaking of nicknames, I know I have some friends who are like the third or the fourth of they're, you know, John Smith the first, John Smith the second kind of a deal. So they're named after their, you know, father and grandfather and blah, blah, blah. So they're like a third or a fourth.
Okay.
And I know a common name is Trey. You know, John, Jay, I've heard those. I have some, one of my cousins he's a John, but he goes by Jay, so I guess that's a common name. Like, how do they decide that? Like, how do they decide what's like, okay, the fourth, and you're the fourth John Smith in this line, so we're gonna call you. Yeah. You know, how do they like determine that? Who did, like, you could pick your own, right? Like,
I don't know. I mean,
why
you'd have to get old enough to like to have an opinion before you could do that. They have to call you something in the meantime, right? Right. Like, you got a good several years before you even care or like can even understand the question of
Sure.
What do you want to be called?
One of my friends is a Paul, but he's a third Paul in a line, and he goes by Trey. So what I'm always wondering is why not like Trace? Why not go by Trace? You know, T-R-E, like 3 in Spanish.
We have a coworker who's the third, and he goes by Trip.
With 3 P's, right?
No, 2.
Just to remind him. What's his real name?
I've asked him once, but
will he tell anybody? That's one of those things.
That's a good question.
I won't tell you my real name.
Well, I think he really prefers Trip, because he's always been that, and so
I just can't see him as anything else, you know? That's the thing, is like, when you're like, wait a minute, your real name is John, or your real name is Paul, it's like, it just like opens this whole new world, and you're like, well, I don't know who you are anymore. But you also do, because you know their real name, so.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's definitely a Trip, but he would say that too. I think he's only gone by the Trip, so.
That's great.
Yeah.
Like, he just came out of the womb, and he's like, no, I'm going by Trip.
Well, I think
okay,
it was
Mom.
Like what you said, I think it was like the plan, you know? Like, it was a plan to call him that, even though he was like the third person in his is the name of the name that was being handed down, whatever it was. So instead of Trey, it was
probably Morgan. I just get the sense he's a Morgan. Maybe not.
A third generation Morgan.
If you guys have any ideas for what Trip's real name is, send them in or comment on our Facebook post when we post this podcast. That would be really helpful, and we'll have to find out sooner or later what his real name is. It's one of those things just you gotta know. It's stuff you should know for your life. Appropriate nicknaming. When is a good time in a relationship to nickname somebody?
I think the best nicknames come out of a story or something that happens, an experience that like you just can't control. And like I know that that's probably not a new idea because everybody's probably tried and failed to like trend a nickname that didn't go anywhere. Mm-hmm. But like the ones that obviously do are sometimes just like part of a story or experience, or like, for lack of a better word, again, subculture or something like tight knit like that.
That reminds me. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just remembered like a big, great, sort of embarrassing nickname I had.
Oh, tell me.
Okay, that has to do exactly what you're talking about. Life experiences. All right, so I was on a mission trip to Africa, specifically a country in South Africa, and I was really tired, a little bit jet lagged, and we were staying at a host home, and I was like sort of falling asleep in the back seat, and the driver asked, hey, where's your house? Like, we pull up on the street where the house was, and I was like, kind of like, it's right next to the Jehovah's Witness church, and people were like, Jehovah, and I was like, I meant Jehovah. And then that was the rest of the trip. I was known as Jehovah. So there you go. That lasted for a while too. Like
Jehovah.
It lasted for.
I was with your church.
A couple of years, yeah.
So your church people kept calling you that even afterward.
Yep. But there's only probably like 4 people who remember that story.
Well, now I know it. So.
And now you know it. That's right. It's funny. That's one of the better stories that led to a nickname that I've encountered. So, but yeah, I totally agree that I think some of the better nicknames have to do with life experiences.
Yeah.
Usually embarrassing situations for a person or humiliating ones that the nicknames come out. You just gotta embrace it, you know? Yep. You just gotta embrace it for the sake of your friends because they enjoy it more than you do.
I love trying to set nicknames for people, and it doesn't always work out, but I think it's a fun sort of exercise, and it kind of, depending on who you're talking to or whatever, so if it's a new person, a new friend or something, I feel like I can kind of bring that comfort level in. So like one of my friends, Cameron, I met him like my sophomore year of college, and I always tried to call him Cam Dog to get that to like stick. And it's a mouthful. It didn't, but I always call him that still, and no one else does, but it like stuck for me, so that's kind of cool. And he's cool with it.
That's great.
Another one of my friends who was in a small group, he loved the McRib so much that I tried to start calling him McRib. And we even tried to make this T-shirt once to help support him to this trip he wanted to go on. And it was like, you know how like the ads for McDonald's whenever they have the McRib, it just says the McRib is back.
Yeah.
So I got a photo of my friend's head and like posterized it, and then put the McRib is back under it. And we didn't end up making it. There wasn't enough interest. Like I wanted to like help him raise money, not just be a funny thing.
That's awesome.
But so I've had a lot of failed nicknames where I've tried.
You've tried hard.
Yeah, but it is fun. I think it's kind of one of those seize life kind of things where it's like just do it. If you might end up setting a really cool nickname that ends up sticking for a long time for somebody,
or you might just fail and
who cares? You might be allowed to call that person that nickname though forever, like Ham Dog. Well, we are out of time, and
bummer.
Bummer. But thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.